The theme for Youth Month 2021 is Evolve. We know that Jamaica's youth are innovative and revolutionary and are best placed to transform Jamaica from what it was pre-COVID to now into a better, new Jamaica. We have a jam-packed series of events this month where we expect young people from across the island to come out and make their voices heard, showing their evolutionary thinking and their evolutionary actions.
Evolve Youths of Jamaica. My name is Yannick Tracy, the co-chair of the Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica. Youths of our nation, let's evolve our mindset so we know that we can be the best versions of ourselves. We are the author and the finisher of our own success. So, if it's that new job you need to get, go get it. If it's to start a new business, just do it. If it's to further your own education, youths, let's make it happen. Let's strive to be great. Let's strive to evolve.
Hi Jamaica, my name is Daniel Jordan Bailey, representing the National Secondary Students Council as the Region 1 Assistant Vice President. For 2021's Youth Month, I want to see more inclusivity. Youths from all walks of Jamaica engaging in virtual activities aimed at enhancing their purpose. Moreover, when I think of the word evolve, I think of metamorphosing, emerging from one stage to another while fulfilling your dream. This can be done by looking towards a certain passion or even fulfilling a certain goal. We can evolve.
Hello Jamaica, my name is Siobhan Smith. I am the General Secretary of the Jamaica Prefects Association. The Jamaica Prefects Association, or otherwise called the JPA, is the national governing body that represents prefects, including head students of secondary schools in Jamaica. This year's Youth Month theme is Evolve, which simply means to gradually improve and become better. I implore you all to grow and evolve in your own right and shine in your own light. Happy Youth Month, Jamaica. Stay safe.
Growing up, we would have been told that the only thing in life that is constant is change. And for that reason, I am particularly impressed that the theme for this month is Evolve. If we are to cope with the realities that we're now facing, we must evolve.
My name is Nevada Green. I'm a part of the National Youth Council of Jamaica. The NYCJ is the umbrella organization for all youth clubs across Jamaica, which seeks to promote youth participation in all community levels and advocate for youth participation in all levels of governance. We here at the NYCJ will be doing for Youth Month our annual general meeting, which involves all community-based organizations and all parish executives, where we come together with our problems and find solutions for them. What we want for this Youth Month is for us all to evolve. We are called to evolve this Youth Month regardless of what challenges the COVID-19 pandemic presents us with. So we're going to press through to ensure that all youth voices are heard this month.
Hello youths of Jamaica, I am Orville Levy, co-chairperson of the Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica. Youth Month theme 2021, Evolve. One word with such powerful roots that if we water it, it can blossom our collective futures. As a council, we have been working to mainstream youth issues into youth policies and ensuring every youth has a voice through our youth parliamentarians. We are at a pivotal time in our lives. This is your opportunity. Take the moment. Your evolution begins today. We're asking young people for Youth Month 2021, you need to participate. Come and show us your evolved thinking, your revolutionary ideas and your innovative action. Let us demonstrate to the rest of the country that Jamaica's youth are evolved and can make Jamaica better than what it was before COVID. Young people of Jamaica, let us evolve.
A very good afternoon and welcome to another in the series of events for our Youth Month 2021. This is the Youth with Disabilities Forum under the theme, Differently Abled but Well-Abled. I'm Javon Keys and the pleasure is mine to be your moderator, and we're joined by an esteemed panel both present here at the Education Ministry and online joining us via Zoom. Of course, this event is brought to you by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in collaboration with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, as well as the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, and our other sponsors, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Heart NSTA Trust, PATH, Proven Investment or Proven Wealth, the Jamaica National Bank, Institute of Law and Economics, and PA Benjamin Manufacturing. Joining me for this forum this afternoon, my special guests online is Dr. Sharon Anderson Morgan, Acting CEO of the Special Education Unit here at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Also with us is Dr. Christine Hendricks, Executive Director, Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. Ms. Kimberly Bell, Project Coordinator, Citizen Security Plan at the Heart NSTA Trust. Mr. Andre Witter, Advocate, Jamaica Deaf Youth Advocacy. And also on Zoom joining us is Ms. Yannick Mendez, National Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica. Of course, we're happy that all of you are able to join us. Welcome. And we're going to start off the discussion this afternoon by looking at the idea of policies and programs that support young persons with disabilities. We want to get some facts. And in that discussion, I'll start the conversation off with Dr. Hendricks and Dr. Anderson Morgan. But before we get to that, let's take a look at this video. Intellectually disabled, but I am abled.
I can do my homework.
I can read.
I can play.
I can use computers.
I can dance.
I can have friends.
I can do anything really.
So give me a chance.
Let me show you.
Because no matter what you think about me,
I am not my disability.
I am able.
Visit jcpdja.com to learn more about children with disabilities or to register your child for services.
Of course, some information there for you. Now, let's get right into the discussion. Let me start with you, Dr. Hendricks. Persons with disabilities, a vulnerable group in our society, but a group that is, of course, well-abled. And we're focusing on youth for this forum. Let me start off by looking at the role of the Jamaica Council for Disabilities and the work you do with youth particularly.
Okay, good afternoon to my audience and your audience this for Youth Month. So the Ministry of Labor and Social Security has a department called the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities that has been in existence since 1973, and it exists to ensure that it facilitates the social, economic, and educational development of persons with disabilities. So we serve persons with disabilities right across the island, and we have 5 social workers that serve in the different parishes, some resident in some parishes and some visiting in other parishes. We facilitate, as I said, the developments through the provision of grants of different kinds based on the individual need. First of all, though, we identify and register persons with disabilities, and according to the Disabilities Act, these persons are persons who have long-term impairments that are either physical, intellectual, mental, or sensory. And so we register these persons, and thereafter they can access any of the benefits. And we register persons from 0 to 100 or however old you are, so that would include our youth.
Of course, and we're going to get into the details about how you go about registering and all those details and information that you at home may find interesting. But Dr. Anderson Morgan, it's come to you, especially in light of COVID-19. What is some of the work being done to particularly target our young people with disabilities, especially because we know the issues with connectivity and lack of face-to-face? What kind of work is the ministry doing now to reach these young people?
Okay, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here participating in this panel. I want to say, first of all, that the work of the special education unit generally is to see to providing access and equity to educational opportunities for students with disabilities. As a matter of fact, I say students with exceptionalities because we not only serve students with disabilities, but students who may be gifted and talented. So that involves supervision of schools, providing teaching, learning support, capacity building, and so on. In light of COVID-19, we have had to tailor our efforts to ensuring that students remain connected to the teaching learning program through our various partnerships. We've been able to provide devices. We have had sessions for parents where we try to help our parents, giving them coping strategies. You know, the students are at home and the parents have become almost assistant teachers. And so we've been targeting a lot of our efforts to helping our parents, telling them, how do I get my child to sit down, settle down, pay attention? How do I help to break down the tasks and so on? So these are some of the ways that we have been supporting our parents, and our officers also go into the virtual classrooms, engage the students, give the teachers feedback, help them with making their lessons more accessible digitally and more engaging. So I'll start off with that for now.
Of course, so lots of work there being done by this special education unit. But you've raised some important points, and these are questions that I think a number of persons have, because when you think of a disability, some people don't necessarily think about, for example, students who are gifted, and so define a disability for me. And we talk about a spectrum for some disabilities and so on. But Christine, how do you define a disability?
Well, the Disabilities Act says that it is a person who has a long-term impairment that is either physical, intellectual, mental, or sensory. So persons who are gifted are usually not necessarily persons with disabilities, although there are persons with disabilities who may be gifted. So the ministry deals with children who have disabilities and who do not have disabilities who may be gifted as well. So,
I mean, you mentioned some of the work that you do, and I know COVID-19 has possibly made your work even more difficult. But talk to me about some of those targeted programs now, especially in light of trying to reach these young persons. What are some of those programs the council has put in place to try and get to some of these young people and their parents, of course, because that parental support, which we're going to go back to in a moment, is quite important.
Okay, so when COVID stepped in 2020, the JCPD had to speak to its partners to find out what persons on the ground required. And some of those things that persons needed, aside from food of course, was devices. They needed devices with data, and so we had to partner with our Digicel Foundation at the time to ensure that our students got the data and got the devices that they required to enable them to be online for school, and also to enable them to have access to other programs that could benefit them as young people. We also facilitated grants for our young people and adults too, but since we're dealing with young people, the Ministry of Finance provided grants of $10,000 each to persons with disabilities who could have that to, help them to cushion the shocks that the pandemic brought. And so that was one of the other provision that is made. We still had our other programs of providing economic empowerment support for persons who wanted to carry out small businesses. But we recognize that during the pandemic that scaled down a bit, but there's a larger uptake now, so persons are now still applying for grants to start small businesses. We also provide support for school. So we have persons who are applying for scholarships, who are applying for back to school items. Of course, it's their parents on their behalf, because for the children up to 18, it's the parents on their behalf, and after 18, then they can apply for themselves. So those are some of the things that we've provided.
Indeed, and what you've spoken about so far, they all speak to empowering our young people to reach their fullest potential, Goal 1 of Vision 2030. And it brings me to the next segment of our discussion, talking about the education and training sector. How do we empower these young people to also be able to fend for themselves despite having a disability? Of course, they are well able. Now, at this time, I'll turn your attention to this video. I am able blind.
I can do my homework. I can read. I can do anything really. So give me a chance. Let me show you. I am able.
Visit jcpdja.com to learn more about children with disabilities or to register your child for services.
And at this juncture, I'll now bring into the discussion Kimberly Bell, and she's the project coordinator, Citizens Security Plan at the Heart NSTA Trust. So Heart, of course, has always been involved in the development of the social fabric of Jamaica. But enabling persons with disabilities is also a core part of your function in ensuring that they are able to also garner and strengthen the skills they have. What are some of the programs Heart has also put in place to reach young people, particularly with disabilities?
Thank you for that question, and good afternoon, viewers. We have a suite of programs. As you know, the Heart NSTA Trust is the nation's human capital development agency, and we pride ourselves in the inclusivity of our young persons with disabilities. We have a suite of programs, from traineeship type programs to apprenticeship type programs. More specifically, we have a program catered to only persons with disabilities, and that is called our Empowerment Program. These particular programs equip our young persons for the world of work. These persons have interpreters if necessary for our deaf community. These persons may have shadows for when they're doing exams or assessments. So these programs are to prepare our young persons for the world of work and for everyday living. We cater to them personally, we cater to them professionally, so that they can have the tools that they need to be, wonderful members of society, or continue to be wonderful members of society.
And all of this also helps them to become financially prudent. Dr. Hendricks, when you think of persons with disabilities, how important it is for them to also be empowered to provide for themselves as best as possible? Because persons with disabilities want to be independent and they want to be supported to become independent. So talk to me about that, the importance of that.
If we consider the fact that persons with disabilities are persons first and the disability next, then whatever else happens for everybody else in society would need also to happen for persons with disabilities. And so economic independence is very, very important. Of course, we recognize that many of them have been left on the fringes. Many of them are not empowered in that regard, and that is part of the reason the economic empowerment grant is there. However, we do have persons with disabilities who have gone to varying levels of education. They have qualified themselves and they have challenged finding jobs. And so we have to continue to advocate to help employers to recognize that persons with disabilities have skills and capabilities too that they can add to, to an organization, to add value to the output of an organization. And so if persons with disabilities are not seen just for their disability, but for their capability, then as a society we would plan for them in every area of life.
How difficult has that advocacy been though? Because I know for many years there are some employers who would not be open to employing certain persons because of a disability. They may be concerned that the person may not be able to carry out certain tasks effectively because of that disability as well.
Can I tell you that the advocacy continues? And I will say that because it is an ongoing work. We recognize that attitudinal barriers are the largest or the greatest barriers that there are, because although we can knock down some steps and open up some doorways, it takes a little bit more time, more sensitization, more awareness, more helping persons to see, and also utilizing peer influence to help other employers to know that it has worked. Where their peers are concerned in terms of other employers have employed persons with disabilities and they are getting the benefit, and they have seen how valuable these employees are. Persons will tell you, employers who have employed persons with disabilities will tell you that persons with disabilities are very loyal. They don't up and leave at a moment's notice, or at the drop of a hat, or when difficulties arise, and they find ways to manage and maneuver their environment, and they also have a voice in terms of participating in the decision making of the companies and the building up of the companies and the development of companies. And once persons are allowed the opportunity and they get their foot in, they will contribute. And
the Disabilities Act will of course provide some support for that, and we're going to talk about that for a bit. But Dr. Anderson Morgan, let me come to you. How would you say the programs that has been put in place by your unit at the ministry is adequately helping our young people with disability to be prepared for the world of work and beyond? Because here in Jamaica, we're not just preparing persons for a local job market, but of course for global inclusion in the world of work. How are we preparing them?
Thank you for that question. It's very important that we, as Dr. Hendricks says, we look at person first, right? And the needs of persons. So our education system is seeking to prepare our young people for the world of work, higher education, or independent living. Because when we look at disabilities, we have a wide range of abilities, right? There's some of our students who are not necessarily going to be able to matriculate to a university. So we want to prepare those students for independent living. We want them to become as independent as they possibly can. And so we have a curriculum that is tailored to the needs of those students, that is separate and apart from the national standards curriculum, though a complementary curriculum, because that curriculum will look at the type of skills that they will need, and these are not necessarily addressed in the national standards curriculum. So that's one way. The second thing that we are doing, and we're presently working on this, is a school to work transition program for students with disabilities. We're actively working on that now. So we have been engaging our stakeholders to say, we've been talking to our employers, what are the skills that you would like to see our young persons with disabilities leaving with? What are the aptitudes? Because it's not just having a vocational skill, but it's having the right attitude, the right communication skills, the technological skills, and everything that goes into. Another critical aspect is what we talk about self-determination and advocacy. A person with a disability has to be empowered to be able to advocate for themselves, to be able to speak up for themselves, to understand their disability and what accommodations and modifications they may require. So that's all a part of school to work transition. And that's something that we're actively engaged in We do have some transition programs in our schools, but we're working to have a national school to work transition program across the sector, across all schools for persons with disabilities, so that we are able to measure the output and say, yes, our students are leaving school with the necessary skills, abilities, and aptitudes to fit them for the workplace. And then the other part of that, we are also engaging the stakeholders, the employers, because it's one thing when you prepare the students and they leave school, Dr. Hendricks spoke to it. If the societal attitudes are not changed, that people understand that a disability is just another diversity, it's just another difference. It's not a death sentence, it's not a disease, it's not something that you're going to catch. It is just another diversity. So we have male, female, we have different colors, we have many differences, and disability is just another difference. So we have to cater to that difference just as we would with any. So our education system or programs are seeking to address these areas and also bring about public awareness and sensitization so we can help to change the societal attitudes.
Absolutely. Now, as we speak about all of that, and you've mentioned advocacy, Dr. Anderson Morgan, that's an important part of the entire fabric of discussions. We have to have the stakeholders involved. And of course, today we have here joining us physically Andre Witter, who is an advocate representing the Jamaica Deaf Youth Advocacy. Now, we're going to bring him into the discussion, but before we do that, let's take a look at this video. I am deaf, able.
I can dance. I can do anything really. So give me a chance. Let me show you. I am able.
Visit jcpdja.com to learn more about children with disabilities or to register your child for services.
Absolutely. Now, Andre, may I add, is what he's saying is being interpreted by Michaelia. Now, talk to us about the advocacy that you've been doing over the years and some of the challenges you faced, speaking up about some of the issues being faced by the deaf community.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So firstly, I would like to inform you that me, myself, I am not the only advocate for the deaf community. I work with other deaf people in the community, as well as partnership with different organizations who realize that deaf people need a solution to resolve their barriers. So over the years, I've experienced trials like what? Information and communication access for all members of the deaf community. Getting information on their own independently. Work opportunities, job opportunities, and different, we need our bosses to understand that deaf people means that we're all the same. We have different situations and we have different circumstances. Focus on the individual because they have different circumstances. Also, we are working for higher education for all. The JAD, the Jamaica Association for the Deaf, where I work, they're developing a JSL curriculum for deaf kids, and that's one way that we're making a difference for the deaf community. In the community, we are doing 3 levels: education level, communication levels, and job opportunity. So right now, we have seen a lot of people who are starting to realize, oh, okay, the deaf community, they're valuable. And now we're starting to partnership with them. And therefore, we're getting more support from the deaf community. And so now it's time for a lot of improvement. We have seen a lot of improvement over the years, but it's now time for more improvement.
Indeed. Now, Kim, those partnerships that Andre has mentioned, they're very important. The multi-stakeholder approach, how do we strengthen that to ensure that we have further support for members of all who are affected by different disabilities?
I'd say sensitization. That's a key point for all our young people and our stakeholders. We pride ourselves at the Heart NSTA Trust when we are seeking partnerships for placement for our persons with disabilities. We try to go in and sensitize not only the human resources department, but the staff in general, to equip them and prepare them to take on our young people who have these varying disabilities. So it is extremely important. Sensitization is what I think and what we think is the solution to this problem.
Indeed, but we need some legislative support, which is where the Disabilities Act of 2014 comes in. Now, Dr. Hendricks, I want you to walk us through what this Disabilities Act represents. What does it mean? And that comes into effect February of next year. That's February 14 next year.
So the Disabilities Act is the legislation that assists in helping our society to recognize that persons with disabilities have the same fundamental rights as everybody else in society. It is also there to ensure that there is less discrimination or no discrimination against persons with disabilities. And it is also there to help to uphold their dignity as human beings and part of the human diversity that, as human beings. And so the Act is there to ensure, as I said, that persons with disabilities have rights and they are accorded these rights in a manner that will befit them and enable them to participate fully in society. And so the Act, in its drafting, persons with disabilities was part of the process. They were part of the whole partnership and stakeholders in this Disabilities Act that would represent them and what it is that they needed. They had a voice at the table, which I think is one of the critical features of this Act. And it says to us that persons with disabilities can assist in national development for the fact that they were at the table when this Act was being drafted. And so this Act, it also establishes the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. So in addition to upholding the rights or stating the rights of persons with disabilities, it establishes the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities as a body corporate. And it also establishes a Disabilities Rights Tribunal that will hear matters of discrimination against persons with disabilities.
All right, before you go any further, Christine, so talk to me about those two particular bodies, because they are important and the service that they will provide when fully established, supported through this Act, are quite important, especially for those working. It's important. So talk to me about those two functions with which the Act will support when those two bodies are in establishment.
Definitely. So persons would have known that there exists a department currently called the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, which has been working over the years to facilitate the needs of persons with disabilities. The Disabilities Act, however, in recognition that the current department would not be sufficient to provide for all the needs and to ensure that the tenets of the Act are upheld, is creating a body corporate. So it will be an independent government body that will facilitate and ensure that the Act is implemented in a manner that will uphold the rights of persons with disabilities. So this new established entity called the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities will come into effect on February 14, 2022. And so it will be a body that will come with larger responsibilities of not only providing for the social and economic development of persons with disabilities, but it will provide advice to the minister on matters of disability. It will ensure that there are codes of practice that are developed to guide society in how not to discriminate against persons with disabilities. It will also be there to provide the investigation that will take place when persons with disabilities come to complain about discrimination. So the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities will have a complaints mechanism, and it will provide that support to the person with disability when they come to complain, to investigate the matter and direct it to the Disabilities Tribunal, or if the parties agree, they can go to some resolution, dispute resolution, if they so choose to have the matter settled outside of the tribunal. So the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities will also provide support in terms of legal support, not by itself, but guide persons with disabilities to legal support that they will need to take their matter, when they need to take their matter to the tribunal. So the council will also provide research on disability, and of course, it is mandated to have a confidential register. First and foremost, I need to say, a confidential register that will have the particulars of persons with disabilities. The good thing about it is that persons who are already registered would not need to go through the full registration process, but there's a part of the registration process in terms of applying for their name to be entered into that confidential register that they will need to do as at February 14. So the JCPD's functions will be enhanced, in order to carry out its mandate as outlined in the Act. So
Absolutely.
the Disabilities Rights Tribunal now, as I said, they will be the body that will hear the matters of discrimination.
All right. And I want to come back to that body in just a moment. But Andre, the idea of hearing that this act is coming to fruition finally, how do you and those you represent feel about this?
So firstly, we are the deaf community. We're really excited to have, final, something that is documented, something that is official, that grants us our human rights. During our experience over the years, we become less than others. People see us as less than others. We can't help you, because you're deaf or whatever. But now we have the law now that makes our lives different. It gives us new experiences. We know that we'll have a lot more trials and challenges, but over the years we'll see something beautiful that we can see. This thing that has been happening all over the years. They've been working together. I know it will be finally granted in 2022. So I'm really excited to see something different. So thank you to the team who worked together to make it happen.
All right. So let me come to you, Kimberly. I'm a person with disabilities. How do I access the programs at High Trust NTA? Am I able to access these programs if I have a disability?
Definitely. Thank you for that question. So our website is user-friendly. Our mobile app is user-friendly for the disabled community. You can apply as an able-bodied person just the same. You come in with your TRN, your birth certificate, proof of qualifications, if any, and there is a section on our application form that asks you to just identify the type of disability, so we know what are the resources that we would need once you have selected a particular training area or certification area. We know the resources that we would need. For example, if somebody needs to use a Braille machine or a Braille software, we know that that's something that we need to enforce before that person's training. If it is that they need access to the JAWS software or the JAWS software, let me just make sure I get the correct, the job access with speech, right? As well as the non-visual access, desktop access for all persons who are visually impaired or blind. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Hendricks. So, right, so these are things that we're putting in place. So I want to encourage our young people with disabilities, and not only our young people with disabilities, but everybody, to come into the Heart NHTA Trust, because we have a skill for you. And we take pride in ensuring that our young people with disabilities specifically maximize their true potential at heart.
All right, and let's look to the education ministry now and that support role you play, because of course we speak about that multi-sectoral approach and everybody coming together. So Dr. Anderson Morgan, when we look at the schools and the infrastructure in place, and we're looking to build new schools, we're looking to boost these infrastructure to ensure that we get to optimal, how quickly are we working towards ensuring that our institutions are inclusive for persons with disabilities? Because we're talking about getting access to, so that you can move up, all the way up in the spectrum of learning. So how are we ensuring that all our institutions are getting to that point of having access, specialized teachers to provide that kind of strengthening for these students?
All right, I am going to piggyback on the theme for Youth Month that it says evolve. And at the start of the session, I Googled the word evolve, and it says to develop gradually. And Andre spoke about it earlier. We've come a far way. There's still further to go. We have been working, and you speak about access, and many persons, when they speak about access, they think of physical access. So Dr. Hendricks said it earlier, it's easy to put in a ramp, knock down some walls, create a physical bathroom for persons with physical disabilities, but access is so much more than that.
Absolutely.
Access means, as we said before, that first of all, the curriculum is accessible, the necessary, the skill is present in the school. So we've been working on the various pieces, right? And we also have been working on a special education policy, which we're hoping will come shortly after the Disabilities Act, because they will both work in tandem, except that the special education policy will be specific to education. So we are working at the policy level, but we're also doing one critical area is capacity building. So we have 3 teacher training colleges that train special educators, right? But in addition to that, what has recently been introduced is that all teachers in training are now doing courses in special education, because we realize that for us to be inclusive, it cannot just be specialized teachers. It is a collaborative approach with special educators and general educators, because that is how we're going to be inclusive. So we're working on that. We've also had so far one cohort of principals trained in inclusive school leadership. And we hope to continue that with the National College of Educational Leadership until all principals are trained in inclusive school leadership. All principals will know, how do I leverage my resources? How do I make sure that my infrastructure is accessible, that my teachers are working together to ensure access? Understanding how to use assessment data to plan for students to do those individual education plans. So there's so many pieces to the puzzle. So I've been following the conversation, and each speaker talks about collaboration. And it is something that whenever we meet to talk about disabilities, we realize that we cannot work in silos. So the Ministry of Education must work with the Ministry of Labor and with all the various organizations representing persons with disabilities, and with the Ministry of Health and so on, because someone will say, how does health come in? But we have to be able to pick up these disabilities early. And so the health sector is the first sector that all of us interact with when we come into this world. And so if the health sector is able to provide us with data to say, okay, this year, 15 children were born with this particular disability, or 15 children who are at risk of a particular disability, then education can plan, labor can plan, and so on. So these are about some of the things that we are doing to ensure access. We also have other training programs for teachers. So we have teaching children with exceptionalities. We've been giving scholarships to young people who want to pursue special education in institutions. So we are attacking or addressing the issue from several different angles, because we realize that there's so many critical pieces to. But I really like the evolve, really gives me hope, because it means developing gradually. So we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to work on all the various aspects until our education system becomes truly inclusive, because written in the mission of the Ministry of Education is that our education system is inclusive, right? And that it produces citizens, productive citizens. And of course, that includes students with disabilities.
Thank you. I mean, you're
hitting
the nails on the head, because, I mean, one of the things I wanted to find out is that support for educators in the classroom and helping them to be able to, support students with disabilities. But Dr. Hendricks, truth be told, not everybody has an obvious disability. How do we identify persons who may not have a physical disability? And I mean, this goes back to the issue of the classroom and being able to support these persons, and even going back further with that synergy between us and the health ministry. But how do we identify and support persons who don't have physical disabilities?
Thank you so much for that question, because incidentally, this year, Disabilities Awareness Week, which will fall between November 28 and December 3, December 3 being International Day for Persons with Disabilities, the theme is not all disabilities are visible. And so it is very, very important that we recognize as a society that there are persons whose disability you will not see. And it doesn't mean that because you cannot see it, it doesn't exist. Many persons tend to think that a ramp is the only thing that is required for a person with a disability because they only think of what they can see. So it goes back to what Dr. Anderson Morgan said earlier about the fact that the Ministry of Health has a critical part to play in this process, because the JCPD can only identify persons based on the verification of the assessment that a medical professional can provide to us to verify that a person has a disability. So, of course, there are disabilities that everybody can see off the bat, but because there are those that you are not able to see, then the medical professional will have to provide that verification, and that's the only way we can identify it as we can verify it as real as a disability based on the classification and the definitions that are provided for us as a society based on the Disabilities Act.
Okay, so I've identified that my child has a disability. How do I now go about registering my child or anyone at all, because disabilities can come even after birth at any point in life? How do I go about registering to be a part of this, of the council?
So the first thing, upon the parent recognizing that the child is not meeting some developmental milestone, and their doctor or their medical professional would have pointed out that there is something that needs attention. If it is in the school that they're identified and the teacher picks up something that is different from the typically developing child, then the first thing to do is to come to the JCPD or download our registration forms from our website, jcpdja.com, or they can collect a form from any of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security parish offices across the island, or at our head office currently at the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities at 18 Ripon Road. They can get that registration form. So it's a medical report form that has to be completed by the medical professional to verify the disability and the type of disability, the severity of the disability, and so on. And after that form is completed, stamped and signed by the medical professional, and the client, if it is a child, then the parent signs on behalf of the child, stating that they are willing to give the information to the council. Then they can present that and complete also the application for registration. Now, the application for registration is giving information about the individual, biodata, the name, your age, date of birth, where you live, and other things that can assist the JCPD to understand the demographics that it serves.
I don't have to pay for this registration form?
No, you don't pay for this registration form.
And if I'm based outside of Kingston as well, is there any possibility for the group to come to me? Is there a framework like that in place?
Say that again, please.
For example, if I'm based outside of Kingston, do I have to find an office, or are there roving officers that would come to help to do that assessment?
Right. So currently we have social workers in the parishes across the island. In the new JCPD, there will be at least one social worker in every parish that will help to complete that process, or provide those forms to those persons who would like to be registered. All right. So it's a voluntary process, but it is an important process, because without registration, as a country, we will not know exactly how many persons with disabilities there are. We also will not be able to adequately plan for the number of persons with disabilities that there are and the different disabilities that exist. Additionally, there are benefits to registering. So once a person registers, then they can apply for the different benefits that exist within the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. And you just heard that in the new dispensation, the fact that there will be a complaints mechanism, there will be additional benefit for persons to come to, complain. Their situation or matter can be investigated and they go on to the tribunal if it's so.
And I want to zone a bit more into the tribunal. We're going to go back to that in a moment. But I wanted to ask Andre, when we look at inclusivity and access, how important is it for you as a person with disability to feel included and not ostracized in a system?
So for me, it's important that we feel included, right? A lot of people have different perspectives. A lot of people have different thoughts. And as the new development comes, then it will benefit us, and we're able to feel, we're able to give our ideas and able to give our contribution, and to say if something happens, I want to use a perfect example here. I'm a deaf person, right? Maybe someone wants to help me. And once you help me, you don't allow me to do, you're just on my shoulder, you're just shadowing me, and you're just doing it for me. You're saying you're going to give me an opportunity, you're going to help me. There's nothing wrong with that. That's truly good. But, that's not what we want. That's not the right way to do something, So let me do it. Work with me, help with me. Let's collaborate and make it, That's one, say that this is the right way to do it or it's the wrong way to do it. But don't be on my shoulder, And that's the most important part about exclusivity, is understanding that there are different ways to do things.
Absolutely. Support and helping all persons with disability to feel included, to feel able. Of course, we want to hear more from members of the community who are, all across the island. And we have one person on Zoom who will be sharing a testimonial, and she is Yannick Mendez. She is a member of the National Youth Advisory Council. Yannick, welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Yannick. So I'm going to pose the same question to you. How important is it for you to feel included, feel a part of the discussions taking place surrounding the community of persons with disabilities? And how does it make you feel to be included in these discussions?
All right, so firstly, inclusivity is very important, because how are we going to make policies? How are we going to be making decisions without the input of the persons who are actually affected by the decisions that will be made? So being included, seeing policies being developed and redeveloped is really good, and it shows that the ministries, the different organizations working with people with and for persons with disabilities are actually thinking about inclusivity and considering the input of those who have particular disabilities. So it actually feels great, and it is something that would have been needed for a while, and I am so enthused to see that it is finally happening.
Advocate, you're a part of the National Youth Advisory Council. What's that experience been like, and how important is it for other groups to ensure that persons with disabilities are included in the discourse, are included in the participation to represent all persons involved?
Well, being a part of the National Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica has been really great thus far. It shows inclusivity, particularly within the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and it allows me the opportunity to partake in policies that are being developed for youth, including those with disabilities. So it is really great to see that. The message that is sending to the different organizations is that persons with disabilities, they too have a voice, and they can contribute to national development, inclusive of policies and organizations that can benefit the entire society. So persons with disabilities aren't just a segment within society that should be marginalized, but are persons who actually can add value to society and are actually right thinking and rational citizens who should be participating and included in the various discourse that's happening within the nation.
Yannick, let me ask you, what are some of the things you would like to see changed in the approach we take to persons with disabilities?
That's a very good question, because I have been listening to the other panelists, Dr. Hendricks, I am actually pleased with the way things are progressing. However, one thing, I'm not sure if I had missed it or it was not stated, but what I'd like to see is that the sensitization that is being spoken of don't just occur when people are fully grown, because we know that when persons are grown, it's a bit more difficult for them to, accept things, especially since behaviors are learned, and learned behaviors are best taught while growing. So what I'd like to see, I heard talk about the Ministry of Education and their partnership with the various schools in relation to persons with disabilities. So what I'd like to see particularly is the sensitization process occurring from basic school, preschools, primary schools, so that persons grow with this idea that persons with disabilities are actual people too, and not wait until we're in high schools or universities where we already have a mentality that persons with disabilities are less than or restricted. So, growing up with that sensitization allows you as an upthinking citizen to be more inclusive and accepting of persons with disabilities.
Absolutely. Now, as we look to wrap up, I mean, we cannot have this discussion without looking at the fact that COVID-19 is definitely having an impact on every single person in society, including persons with disabilities. So I want you to take a look at this video, and then we're going to come back to finalize this discussion on youth with disabilities and how we can support them.
I can do my homework.
I can read.
I can play. I can use computers.
I can dance.
I can have friends.
I can do anything really.
So give me a chance.
Let me show you. Because no matter what you think about me,
I am not my disability.
I am able.
Visit jcpdja.com to learn more about children with disabilities or to register your child for services.
The novel coronavirus, known as COVID-19, is a respiratory disease spreading around the world. You can get COVID-19 in different ways. If someone who has the virus coughs or sneezes too close to you, their germs can get into your body through your mouth, nose, or eyes. Or if someone who has the virus touches a surface such as a table or doorknob, the virus will stay there for a while. You touch the same surface during that time, you could get sick.
Some of the signs and symptoms of COVID-19 include a fever of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, coughing, or a hard time breathing. It is important to remember that if you have these symptoms, you may not have COVID-19. You might have a cold or the flu, so you should consult your doctor. And for information about services for persons with disabilities, call the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities at 876-926-9374, 876-926-9375, 876-968-8373, 876-618-1133, or email jcpd@mlss.gov.jm. You can also visit their website at
www.jcpdja.com.
If you need more information about COVID-19, call the Ministry of Health and Wellness at 888-1LOVE. That is 888-663-5683 or 888-754-7792 or 876-542-5998 or 876-542-6007 or email covid19@moeh.gov.jm or jacovid19facts@gmail.com.
And there to help us support persons as we combat COVID-19. But Dr. Hendricks, as we look to wrap up, how do we support persons with disabilities, particularly, especially in this time of COVID-19? I mean, the mental strain and anguish can be so much for all of us. How do we help to support these persons and as they also try to be their best selves in this time of pandemic?
Okay, so COVID-19 brings with it different things for different people, and similarly so for persons with disabilities. Some may need mental health support, so a counseling, a friend to talk to. I know that I can't say a shoulder to lean on since we're supposed to be 6 feet apart from each other, but a listening ear, it might be what someone needs. For some persons who may be blind, it could be assistance with the purchase of items, personal items, grocery items. So it depends on the individual and what is required. For the deaf community, of course, it is always ensuring that our messages are in sign language, and also ensuring too that whenever we're giving information, both the deaf and the blind can see and hear, and persons with intellectual disabilities can understand. So the language is simple. So whenever we're giving information, we have to consider the different disability groups and how we provide that information, just to ensure that we keep it simple, and just remember, if I'm not seeing, what would I need to do to hear? And if I'm not hearing, what would need to happen for me to see? So if we think that, then we are on a good way. For persons with physical disabilities, again, it is different things. Not everybody might need somebody to guide them or to lead them or to push them around, but it is different things for different people. Sometimes it is assistance with food. I'll go back to say that because it has become such an important, we know that food was the mainstay of life, but it's as if COVID has highlighted that, particularly for vulnerable groups who are unemployed and unable to fend for themselves during this time. And so it is just important to understand what persons need. For some families, they just need a break. Because like other parents, they're home every day with their children. They have to be supporting online learning. So a lot of understanding also has to be, shed around, and a lot of grace has to be given to everybody so that we make it out together and recognize that the pandemic has impacted persons in different ways. Find out from the individual how it impacts them and then help, because one solution is not the solution for everybody.
Definitely, and it has to be a multi-pronged approach and integrated approach towards reaching everyone. So, Dr. Hendricks, as we wrap up, what's the future of Jamaica you want to see for persons with disabilities?
Working towards an inclusive society, and a society where persons with varying disabilities can move around, can participate in nation building, can participate, carry out their own lives just like anybody else. So if I use a wheelchair, I should be able to move myself from my vehicle onto the sidewalk, if I choose to be independent, into any store, into any government building, move around. Somebody can talk to me if I'm deaf, I'm using sign language, or writing so that I can read it if there's not sign language there. When I step into a space, there should be signs that I can see which department is here or there, which direction to go. There should be a flow in the environment so that if I use a wheelchair, I can sit and face the customer service representative, or if I'm tall, I can stand and face the customer service representative. So there are, the environment is so created, so designed that it suits everyone. And that is a society that I look forward to, one that is universally designed so that from the cradle to the grave, I am served, I can do my business, I can move around, and I can live and fully participate in society. That's what I look forward to.
Thank you. Dr. Anderson Morgan, future of education for persons with disabilities.
Future of education for persons with disabilities.
Are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Are you not hearing me?
I'm hearing you loud and clear now.
Okay. Future. To add to what Dr. Hendricks says, universally designed education system where every classroom has the resources that are needed to cater to all learners, regardless of ability, regardless of their ability, regardless of their needs. Every single learner is being catered to, because inclusive education is good education for everyone. And I take what Ms. Mendez said, I noted it, Ms. Mendez, and I'm really going to be looking into the sensitization from the early childhood level so that disability becomes a norm, not a phenomenon. So when we see a person with a disability showing up at a school, there's no panic. There's no panic because schools are ready, everyone has been sensitized. So that is the Jamaica that I dream of. And the outcome would be that every single person with a disability is leaving the education system either ready for the world of work, independent living, or higher education.
Thank you so much. Kimberly, the future of training.
We are on our way, we're not there yet, but I want to see all our young people benefiting from our suite of programs, be it technical training, be it customer service, early childhood, as well as our buying from our stakeholders. When we have our apprenticeship type programs, we want to be able to say, hey, we have these persons who are highly skilled and trainable. Can you facilitate them in your world of work or in your workplace for a stipend paid by Heart Trust?
Andre, the future of Jamaica and the world over for persons with disabilities, what would you want to see?
So firstly, I recognize that there are different sides. Recognize that there are positive and negative sides to COVID. Positive is that people are realizing and recognizing the deaf community, that we're here, that they're there. We're not hiding. No, we're here. We're present. We're clearly here. But all that we need is accessibility to information, and also for the government to give interpretive services. We didn't see that back then, but we're starting to see that now, and people are starting to realize, okay, that there's a challenge, and we have to learn how to use communication, sign language, and also the deaf community there. What are their barriers? Their barriers is communication access. So imagine if all people learn sign language, they were able to communicate freely. I don't know if we will all, so that's what I want to see in the future.
Absolutely, and I'm one of those who want to ensure that I learn sign language to be able to effectively communicate. Yannick, final word is yours. The future of Jamaica and the world for persons with disabilities. Oh, and I'm hearing we don't have Yannick, which means at this juncture, I have to say thank you to my panelists. We had Yannick Mendez on earlier. She is from the National Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica. She joined us via Zoom. Dr. Sharon Anderson Morgan, still online. She is the acting CEO, Special Education Unit at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Here with me, we have Dr. Christine Hendricks, Executive Director of the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. Kimberly Bell, Project Coordinator for the Citizens Security Plan at Heart NSTA Trust. And of course, Andre Witter, Advocate, Jamaica Deaf Youth Advocacy. Of course, We also must thank our sponsors who would have helped to make this event possible. Of course, this is an event under the Youth Month activities under the theme Evolve, put on by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. This particular forum is being supported by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Our other sponsors are the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the Heart NSTA Trust, Path, Proven Investments, the Jamaica National Bank, Institute of Law and Economics, and PA Benjamin Manufacturing Limited. Of course, we must thank our technical support team here from the PBCJ, and of course our interpreter, Michaelia Cowan, who has been quite extraordinary, helping us to communicate with all of you out there. Of course, on behalf of the entire team, my name is Javon Keys. The pleasure has been mine to be the moderator for this function. Of course, keep safe and look out. We have many more activities surrounding Youth Month for you. So please stay tuned to all our pages, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're all there. So on behalf of the entire team, take care and be safe.